All right, everyone, welcome back. Cyberpunk Holiday. This is Volume 2, Issue 6 of PlayStation Magazine. The Silent Hill one. Changing things up. Trying to use more natural lighting here with hopefully a better resolution as I messed with the settings on my camera, which isn't a great camera to begin with. So more than just a Resident Evil clone, and a little bit about Siphon Filter in here. So let's get started. Legend of Legaia. Never played it. I wasn't much of a JRPG or even really an RPG guy back in the PS1 days. I did beat Final Fantasy 8 and 7, but who didn't? Quake 2.
One gigantic picture.
You lie?
I don't care if you lie!
Quake 2 for Nintendo 64 und PlayStation Game Console.
Port to the N64 and the PS1 from PC. Quake 2, didn't play it as much as Quake 1. And I actually owned Doom 64, which was, I think, programmed by Gabe Newell from, Valve. So, interesting little fun factoid there. Pretty typical ad. Quake, never as cool as Doom. This Odds for You, Oddworld Abe's Exodus, and Odd We Trust. I love the Oddworld games. These games are still fantastic today. Probably don't control as well as I remember them, but both of them, just top-notch quality. You can never go wrong with the Oddworld games. And I even liked Munch's Odyssey. I just love that world, the humor. Rogue Trip. Didn't play it. It looks like a poor man's Twisted Metal. Maybe I'm wrong.
Stupid earthling!
But yeah, any of these games that were like Twisted Metal likes, you didn't even bother. You had the best one. Featuring music from the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. Oh boy. Thunder. We talked about this on last episode, but I'll just kind of repeat myself here. The any game that was wrestling on PlayStation, for whatever reason, they just did it differently, and the quality never matched what was on the N64. For in terms of just how the characters moved, the polygons, how they looked, they just were better on 64. And this one right here, I actually didn't even get to play, so maybe they upped it later, but Thunder was never good as Monday Night Nitro, and these games are never good as the 64. And this is during the Monday Night Wars, when wrestling was at its biggest, I would argue. Attitude Era, all that.
Sweet!
Oh, sports. Woo. Stealing a Michael Jordan pose there. All right. So we got our first initial Silent Hill art right here. Very beautiful. Opens the issue up. Very good stuff. Looks like there's going to be a huge ad here, though. Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver. How could you not love it? Oh man, this game was a blast back in the day. Everyone loved the Legacy of Kain series. I feel like everyone played Soul Reaver, though, more than they did the original, because the original was like a top-down, isometric, incredibly hard, actually, difficult game.
Cast him in.
So this one was more action heavy. Beat 'em up, platformer. And so I mean, look, it speaks for itself. Everyone's saying good things about it. Vampire fans, get ready. Soul Reaver could be the ultimate thriller. Very impressive indeed. It was a great game. It's like gothic, 100% vampire gothic craziness. Gender wars. So this is kind of interesting. People are already talking about, like today people use the term woke as an expression of, people are fighting too hard for equality or something. I don't really know what the argument is. I don't care. But even in the 1990s, the people are already arguing here about that. So, dear official PlayStation Magazine, I just bought the January issue of your magazine. What were you people thinking? I have never seen such a misogynistic, condescending, idiotic display of Neanderthal male canine mentality. I am referring to the article 10 Games Your Girlfriend Will Play. Do you honestly think there are no women players? I myself play Final Fantasy VII, Kagero, Deception 2, and Metal Gear Solid. Metal Gear. But don't think I'm just a psycho tomboy. I'm an attractive wife and mother of 2 young children. What makes you think you can ridicule an entire group of people? Would you have dared publish an article mocking African Americans or Native Americans? I get the fact that the article is supposed to be a lighthearted look at couples, but please, do you think women are stupid? It is my opinion that it's time for your little boys club to take a reality check. Just when I thought I had found the perfect magazine that catered to my interests as a serious gamer, you had to mess it up by being ignorant. Congratulations, you've graduated to official pig status and deprived me of one of my favorite magazines. There are guys who write in too, and they try to defend this. As you can see, this was an exceptionally hot topic this month. We appreciate all the candid criticism, but we must point out that the article was indeed aimed at a specific and significant segment of our readership. Of course, the article is not intended to represent all women. It's meant as a handbook of sorts for fellows looking to entice their significant others into the world of PlayStation gaming. Clearly, the female segment of the gaming community doesn't need such enticing. We don't have to try to lure you into our world. It's probably just a bad article, man. Just say that. I don't know. I don't care. Caption contest winner. They would put these captions out of just something, like a screenshot, and then someone would have to say something funny to the caption, almost like the original meme in a way. So this is funny for that. This is literally memeing. So they have a picture of Meryl here in the Psycho Manus room.
Snake, how do you like me?
What the?
Do you like me? Hold me, Snake.
What's wrong?
Oh, hurry, make love to me. Snake, I want you.
Who's that?
You don't like girls?
And she's saying, you have 5 seconds to hand over the Furby. Okay. And then the new one is going to be, this is Harry Mason in Silent Hill, and somebody's got to say something funny to that. So, original memeing in the 90s. Metal Gear Toys by McFarlane Toys. It's an attitude.
Nice try, guys.
Spawn from Todd Toys. We're out to plaster the competition.
I actually had the Metal Gear 2 toys, not gonna lie. I had Snake and somebody else. I don't remember the second character, but I know I had Snake. Wait, what? Codename Space Seals? I don't remember the joke. Fan art. Some good stuff here. Original Metal Gear when you're on the not on the tanker, where Foxhound was. God damn it, how could I forget? Someone will remind me in the comments. These Lara Croft ones, pretty cool. PlayStation Game Stick. This just looks absolutely fucking awful. Like absolute garbage. If there's a commercial for this, I'll leave it here. Maybe there isn't. Everyone knew these were trash. Contender. Not You Ready to Rumble. The stuff Fighting Legends are made of. Marvel Superheroes versus Street Fighter. I mean, this was the beginning of it, you know? This was before you got your Marvel versus Capcom. It's kind of started here. And you know, these were just as fun, I would argue. I think the most big power swap team that I had was Spider-Man and Wolvie, or Spider-Man, Wolverine, and like a heavy hitter. I forget. Maybe I chose Gambit. Great game to play in the arcade. Join Fighter's Edge, earn killer stuff. So you could enter for a chance, basically, because I don't think they're just gonna give out skateboards and boom boxes over nothing. Imitation PlayStation for PCs. So this article actually talks about something interesting, and it was that the PlayStation games were going to come to PC in a virtual gaming station shown at Macworld Pro Expo in January of that year, to run PlayStation software on Apple's Macintosh computers equipped with G3 processors, including the popular iMac line.
Have the best game machine in the world. Now, this is another game machine. It's the most popular game machine in the world. Wouldn't it be great if we could play some of those titles too? Well, at Macworld today, Connectix is introducing the Virtual Game Station. It is software. It is software that they're going to sell for $49 that turns your Mac into a Sony PlayStation. It plays a few hundred. It plays a few hundred of the Sony PlayStation games today. And I'd like to ask Phil to come back and give us a quick demo. Phil?
Hey, Steve. This is cool times 10. And the ability for very quickly, very affordably to take a Macintosh, my Macintosh, and run all the great PlayStation titles, just stick in my CD drive and start to play them. It's just a phenomenal idea. So I have here a Mac, and sure enough, no surprise running, is Connectix Virtual Game Station. Because we have USB, we have a lot of great new game controllers. I have a game controller that looks just like the kind of controller you'd use for these titles. And let me get it started again. So here I am in Crash Bandicoot. This is the #1 Sony PlayStation title shipping today. And with all the same kind of great performance, it's the kind of game my son would love. Allows me to jump, run around, use the same controls. And if I was any good, look. Now I'm so good at this that I don't have enough time to keep playing, or would run out of time. But there you go, working just like on a PlayStation, same controls, same title.
I mean, now you can just ROM these, obviously. When we talk
so-
about females in gaming, though, like the angry people that wrote in at the beginning of the magazine, here you've got the female version of Parappa the Rapper getting her own game. So, I mean, there's definitely, you know, trying to cater to women in gaming. It's not to say that they weren't in the 90s. So, yeah, that's kind of cool. This is a goofy ad. OK Pops. Backstreet Billiards. I know a bunch of people whose dads bought this for their kids' PlayStation to play it on there because they couldn't afford probably a pool table or something. I think my dad might have even bought it himself. Maybe it wasn't this one. Maybe it's a different one. I don't know. News bits. Nothing super good here. K1 Revenge, never played it. Which series are you most sick of? Most people voted for Street Fighter. The other three are Twisted Metal, Tomb Raider, and Crash Bandicoot. Tomb Raider coming second. I guess I could see the Street Fighter just because it's a brawler. Tomb Raider, they put one of those out like every 6 months, every year. I could see that. Crash Bandicoot eventually even got a racing game. It was so much out. Twisted Metal, I felt took its time a little bit more, but it's a simple game in itself as well. And after 2, I mean, the quality really dropped, right? Japan's top 10 selling PlayStation games. Ridge Racer Type 4. Number 2, Super Robot War F. Number 3, Sound Novel Evolution. So just audiobook?
なんだこれ
ミステリアスホラー音ミリソー蘇生編
大事にしてね
I'd have to look it up. Maybe I'll put something here. UK's top selling PlayStation games. Tomb Raider 3, FIFA 98, Cool Borders 3. It's really sad to see Apocalypse is on there because I remember playing it once. I think someone rented it. Wasn't that great a game. That's the Bruce Willis Apocalypse game. Which game are you most excited for? A new Resident Evil game or Silent Hill? Well, considering Silent Hill barely came out, 36 people say Silent Hill, 63 for Resident Evil. Oh, God, this is interesting too. Oh my God. Oh my God. Kenny killed Tiger. So to fill out PlayStation discs, this is crazy. They would actually put just like garbage on there to make it fill out. Let me read it. One of the files on Tiger Woods PGA Golf 99 showed a South Park cartoon titled The Spirit of Christmas. When the parents viewed the cartoon, they weren't too pleased about what they considered offensive material, prompting them to call local TV and radio stations. Word spread quickly, and before long, calls were flooding the headquarters of Electronic Arts, the game publisher, and Tiger Woods. EA immediately recalled the North American PlayStation version. Where's the quote at, though? Because it talks about it. Public relations official at EA said that extra PC files are put on the disc as bits of packing material, data around the edges of PlayStation games so that the laser knows not to read that part while playing the game. This is a common occurrence according to Fraser, who added, "No one really checks those useless data files. I went through both Sony and EA Arts quality assurance." So someone put the Spirit of Christmas, the South Park episode, on Tiger Woods to as packing material, which is just crazy. I bet you could probably find a copy and find it on there today. Now it's been labeled a collector's item. They go as much for $100 on internet news groups. Super weird. Jeff Gordon. Woo. Look at those shades. Top 20 best-selling games in the U.S. Crash Bandicoot Warped. Tomb Raider 3. Metal Gear. Twisted Metal 3. NASCAR. Crash Bandicoot 2. Let's see if there's anything else good on here. Rugrats, Spyro, WF Warzone, Twisted Metal 2, Tomb Raider. So nothing else kind of big. There's a lot of sports games on here. NFL Game Day, Gran Turismo, Knockout Kings, Madden, NASCAR, man. People love their NASCAR games apparently in the 99s. Or 98. Lunar, never played it. Again, just not much of an RPG junkie. Great ad though, cool art. I mean, look how much. Oh, it's a show. Sorry. Our games go to 11. No, it is a game. 4-disc collector's edition, 2 games, music CD, making of. Wow, they really bagged this fucker. 100-page cloth. Hardbound art book. Man, this is like the special edition of 98. Wonder how much you had to pay for it. Coming soon. Tekken, everyone had this. I never really paid attention when it was on though. Siphon Filter. Great game. Don't remember much of it, but I remember it being a extremely fun game. Centipede, Legend of Legaia. We talked about this last time. I really want to play this. Go back and try it out. It looks pretty good. These are previews, by the way. Bomberman Fantasy Race. Guessing that wasn't a good game. Rushdown Dirt. Yeah. Warzone 2100. Sports games. Oh man. So Alien Resurrection. Check this out. Here's an updated look at a game that Fox Interactive is certainly taking their time to release. Okay, so right here it's third person, right? We all know it eventually came to be a first person game. And one of the quotes from the developers about it was that the whole entire team that created Alien Resurrection beat the game with only a handgun to ensure that it wasn't too hard for people. Now, what we know now about Alien Resurrection, it's one of the hardest games on PS1 to beat, even with all the weaponry. So basically, they lied. Fox Interactive, man. I don't know who this is. Ask Assy Guy? Who the hell is that? Assyware. Imagine the possibilities. Final Fantasy VIII, baby. International previews. So this hadn't even come out yet. Wow. Oh. Although by the time you'll read this, it'll have already been released. As we go to press late. Hopefully a great Final Fantasy yet is on the verge of it. February 11th, street date in Japan. Gundam Char's Counterattack. That looks fun. Spyro. Flying Dragon seen entering U.S. airspace. Embittered Sheep stages anti-Spyro protest. The Heralded Inquisitor. They just talk about here, if I remember correctly, that, you know, what about the adults instead of children? Like, these are grown-up games with grown-up issues. They talk about how Silent Hill, Resident Evil, Clock Tower, you know, these are all considered more grown-up games because of the violence and so on and so forth. Great ad for Lara. I'd argue that's one of her best ads. Very cool. All right, the review main event here. As we did last time, I'll show the gameplay footage here, and you can listen to my commentary of reading this while we do the gameplay footage. It's a pretty big ass review. 4 out of 5. It should be a 5 in my opinion, or a 4.5 at least. Let's just go ahead. Before I get into all this, because I'm going to do this separate of their interviews with the developers. So we're going to read the review first, interview with the developers, and then we'll go ahead and read the rest of the magazine. But before we do that, box score. I would compare Silent Hill with genuinely disturbing films like The Exorcist, The Shining, Kubrick's of course, and perhaps even Psycho. Pros: unparalleled atmosphere, great twisted story, lots of solid puzzles, lots of scary little touches, wonderfully disturbing music and sound effects. Totally true. Absolutely 100% true. Cons: frustratingly bad controls. Okay, wait, I agree, but at the same time, Harry Mason isn't a trained ex-Marine official, you know what I mean? He's a dude, he's a dad. Some slowdown and other graphic issues. I gotta be honest, I never minded the slowdown given the fog effects and everything they put in there that's 3D that, like, you know, Resident Evil doesn't do. Anyway, puzzles can be too obvious. They regret saying that, considering what happens in the series later. Get extremely puzzling. And story can seem disjointed. I would argue that works in its favor. That's not a con, that's a pro. Okay, but yeah, let's go ahead and read the review. There are violent and disturbing images in this game. That's how Silent Hill begins. Before even flashing the Konami logo and heading into the intro, violent, disturbing. Come on, you say. I've torched endless streams of Resident Evil zombies. I've come face to face with the Scissor Man and Clock Tower. I've been there. I've done that. Violent? Ha! Nothing disturbs me, you think. Nothing. Think again. Because when Konami tells you their game is violent and disturbing, it's because they've taken great pains to make it so. And brother, they are not messing around. Konami appears to have tweaked every single feature of Silent Hill in order to make the game as unsettling to the player as possible. Dramatic swooping camera changes and unusual angles quickly set the player on edge. Then the music begins to swell, a discordant score that slowly increases in volume and intensity, indicating that something truly horrifying is just around the bend. Only you can't see it because your pitiful flashlight beam only illuminates a few feet in front of your face. Somewhere off in the distance you hear a child crying. Somewhere off to your left you hear something gurgling in the darkness. Suddenly you hear a tremendous crash behind you. You whip around only to find the room empty and turn black, just in time to be attacked by a stunted, deformed, shuffling thing that seems hungry for your blood. This sort of thing is par for the course in Silent Hill, and even after having played through the game multiple times, these mind tricks and terror tactics still freak me out. And this is what Silent Hill is really about: atmosphere. The game oozes with disturbing atmosphere from start to finish, and I for one loved every minute of it. Let me get these complaints out of the way before I resume evangelizing. First, let's talk about controls. In short, they stink. Sure, Silent Hill is an adventure game, and adventure games aren't all about twitch controls, but the game does have its share of action, and when you try to fend off a flock of flying reptiles, it would be helpful to at least be able to aim where and when you want, run when you need to, and generally focus on staying alive. Unfortunately, the controls, especially in terms of movement, are ridiculously unresponsive. Far too many times I sat there screaming at poor Harry Mason to run, damn you, run. That's the sort of thing that should be fixed in the early stages of development, and it hurts the game more than anything else. The game engine itself also has its shares of flaws. There were times when I would be running through a particularly nasty section of town, trying not to waste energy or ammunition on hordes of enemies I knew I'd never have to see again if I could just get down this one street. After a few blocks, however, I had collected so many pursuing beasts that the game started to seriously bog down. It made me want to start plugging away at the bastards just to speed the game back up. Of course, I learned my lesson. I'm no match for 4 pterodactyl nasties, 2 undead monkey men, and a rabid dog. That's the sort of thing that draws you out of a game, especially one that is trying so hard to suck you in. On a related note, the graphics can get grainy, almost to the point of distraction. I'm not sure why the designers elected to use strange particle patterns instead of standard lighting and transparency effects. Perhaps it's less taxing on the hardware. Regardless, though, at first it's a novel effect. After a while, it starts to look like you're wandering through a perpetual sandstorm. Not pretty. Furthermore, with the animation being so superlative in the cinemas, I would have liked to have seen a bit more adequate animation on the engine and in-game cutscenes. If that dude only knew the hard work that was put into those cutscenes. Anyway, I digress. Getting beyond the superficial, I also have my doubts about some of the more fundamental elements of game design. First of all, while nearly every one of the game's numerous puzzles has a hint nearby pointing you in the right direction towards its completion, most of these hints can get pretty goofy. The too dramatic language stands out in a game that handles the more abstract elements of atmosphere much more adroitly. And besides that, some of the hints are much too obvious, especially when there's nothing in the room but the puzzles and hints. That being said, I must confess to having trouble with a couple of the puzzles, but maybe I'm just dense. I have a few issues with the story as well. If you're not on the right track to the good endings, there are 2 good and 2 bad endings. The story can seem extremely disjointed. This is because some of the characters fill you in on some crucial story elements as a sort of reward for completing some of the puzzles correctly. Certain crisis points have more than one solution, and that's all I'm going to say about that. I appreciate the reward, especially the second time through the game, but without it, you're left guessing about some pretty important issues. And finally, even in the best of all possible endings, the story doesn't really have a concrete resolution. Personally, this is a plus for me. I liked figuring things out for myself, putting my own interpretation on the events in the game, but there are plenty of people who can't tolerate what they consider unfinished stories, and Konami knows that. The great thing about this, judging by how the rest of the game is executed, Konami knew exactly what they were doing in leaving the ending open to interpretation. It's just the final jab to your subconscious, one last attempt to mess with your head before the game lets you go. And this is why in the end I must recognize Silent Hill for the masterpiece that it is. Fuck yeah. Like Konami's other game, Metal Gear Solid, Silent Hill certainly has its share of flaws, but also like Metal Gear Solid, it sets new standards in complexity and depth of game design that will undoubtedly have an effect on the horror adventure genre for years to come. Where one might compare Resident Evil with movies like Night of the Living Dead, I would compare Silent Hill with more genuinely disturbing films like The Exorcist, The Shining, Psycho. This is a game that does an amazing job of getting into your head and staying there. Silent Hill is well worth a visit. for the Founding Fathers, we wanted to make you scared on an instinctive level. Where did the inspiration come from for the story? Toyama, the director. The original concept actually came from the corporate side. They said we should try our hand at making a horror game. At the time I was asked to work on this project, I didn't know too much about horror games or horror in general, so I started doing my homework. I looked at what sort of horror people were looking at and enjoying and found that the modern horror theme was the one that was getting the most acceptance. What I found was that a lot of modern horror was based around a real-world situation or setting. I wanted to build on these concepts starting with any Midwestern American town and building the horror image upon it. Is it true that the team went to Chicago for research? Toyama. On the way back from E3, we set aside a little extra time to go to Chicago to check out some things and take some pictures. Silent Hill is supposed to be a water resort, so we looked at areas close to the lake for inspiration. Next time we'll set a game in Jamaica. Laughter. What was your goal in creating the atmosphere of the game? Toyama. There were two main concepts we wanted to put into this game. One is that we wanted to make the player feel that the world exists. We took influences from Stephen King for the modern horror atmosphere, so you can have all these indications that this is taking place in our modern world. We wanted to have the horror feeling, but we also wanted to make it feel real to the player. The second concept we wanted to focus on was the technology. To create this world in full polygons with a free-floating camera that changes a lot to keep the player really unbalanced, and to use a lot of fog effects and lighting effects. Do you have any particular influence with regard to those cinematic camera angles, Toyama? In order to give the game a feeling of a real world, but in an unbalanced world, we took influences from David Lynch, Cronenberg, that cinematic style. What do you think of other horror games like Resident Evil? Toyama. Resident Evil 2 in particular put aside the horror a bit and went very quote-unquote Hollywood and focused on the action and felt more like an action movie than a horror game. We wanted to go back to the roots of what horror is supposed to be about. We wanted to make you scared on an instinctive level. Is it true that all the rendered cinemas were done by one person? Yes, Sato is the man. Laughter. Notice the dark circles under his eyes. How long did it take to render the CG for the game? Takayoshi Sato. We'll let you do all the math, but I'll tell you this. For 1 second of cinema, it took about 3 to 4 hours of rendering time. We did the math and concluded that it must have taken up to 2,000 hours just to render the cinemas. This for a game that is estimated at 10 to 20 hours to completion. Ed. If you want to include, back to Sato, if you want to include the modeling with some of the features in it, that's a lot more time. Let's just say I've been working on it since I got into the company, and I haven't slept at all. How long have you been with the company? Sato, I came to Konami about 3 years ago, and since this was the first CG I've ever done, for the first year they mostly trained me. I didn't get my own machine until a year later and have been doing CG for Silent Hill ever since. Are you planning to do a sequel? Toyama. It will really depend on how the public receives the game. That sounds really corporate, but that's the real world. Wow. Akira Yamaoka was there and they didn't even ask him anything. So sad. We're back to the rest of the magazine here. This looks like I'm blurring something out. That's actually just a shadow from the upside down truck here, the monster truck. Roll cage. Looks like your average racer. It actually kind of looks like, what are they called? Those Robot Wars? Driving on the ground is so 90s. Okay. Review of Siphon Filter. Surprisingly original and uniquely entertaining. I did play Siphon Filter back in the day, but it was at a friend's. They had rented it or owned it, but it was near the end of our friendship. They were moving out of state, so I sadly didn't like get to complete it. But I remember having a great time with it. It was interesting the way the main protagonist moved. I forget his name. Yeah. While the pre-rendered cutscenes do tell quite an interesting story, they're barely above the in-game graphics in terms of quality. Yeah. 4 out of 5. That's a cool shot. A Hind D taking down a snowtrooper. It might as well be Metal Gear right there. Videogames.com. It's all you need to know, man. Akuji the Heartless. Is that how you pronounce it? Akuji. 3 out of 5. I remember people liking this game. I didn't play it. Monkey Hero. It was okay. Sports. Bleh. Marvel vs. Street Fighter. 3.5 out of 5. Yeah, I would have given it higher, but maybe I'm thinking of it wrong, you know. Maybe it was Marvel vs. Capcom I'm thinking about. Civilization 2, almost 5. I'm sure it looks archaic as hell now, as it does in these screenshots. But back in the day, I'm gonna totally agree that it was probably a banger. Better than SimCity 2000, right? Boxing games, yeah. Tiny Toons, that was a fun game. The Great Beanstalk, had lots of fun with that. Fisherman's Bait, can you imagine these being around now? Somebody get Rockstar Games on the phone. I want a fishing game. They did Pool Table, come on. $1.49 a minute, only one winner per household per month. 1-900 preview from the best games on the planet. Call now and win. Correctly answer a series of video game questions and win. I'm sure that got disconnected like immediately after this magazine came out. Somebody won. First 5 people that called in won these stupid things right here. And that was it. X-Wire wireless for the N64, so you could play your N64 games wireless. Okay, maybe. I wonder if it worked. Reality Vest for PlayStation. What the fuck is this? I'm going to look this up and put something here. Hopefully there's something there. Boomerang 64. It already was a Boomerang. Remote Wizard Wireless for the PlayStation. I did use one of these. Sometimes they were faulty. They didn't always work. If you got more than 10 feet away from the PlayStation, forget about it. So it's just a review recap. This is interesting. Unbridled Dictionary of the PlayStation. So essentially what it is it's just telling you like things we know today, like analog. What's the analog mean? What's a CD mean? What's a byte? 16-bit. What's a CPU? The central processing unit. What's the engine? Flat shading. Licensing. FPS. What does FPS mean? And the truth is that I remember when I heard a couple of these things, like isometric, LCD, FMV, you didn't know what that meant. Here's a great pre-rendered versus real time. And then they should have added a third one that's had FMV, so you could go graphically. The Pocket Station. Remember those? Texture mapping, RPG, RTS. Things we know today. Every gamer knows today. Strategy guide for Siphon Filter. With maps. Strategy guide for Nitro. This is interesting. Crush the CPU in 5 easy steps. So it tells you how to beat the CPU 100% every time in 5 easy steps. So the game was just that simple that you could break it down and it would no longer be challenging. That's cool, though. I didn't know it had cage matches. That's awesome. Kimberly, one of my favorite Nitro girls, who is no longer married to DDP. I didn't even realize it was her, actually. There's a movie where she gets completely topless, and I was like, whoa, that was Kimberly? Childhood fulfilled or something. I don't know. Oh, man. Look at this. It's like NBA Jam all over again. Oh, man. Controls and special moves for each wrestler. Tricks of the trade, archive tricks, cheat codes. These are basically cheat codes. Contra, Bust a Move, Darkstalkers 3, Twisted Metal 3, God Mode, baby. Asteroids, Colony Wars, more cheats. Man, there's a lot of cheats. They're trying to compete with Tips and Tricks magazine. That's probably what's going on here. The only magazine with a playable demo disc. Next month you get Ridge Racer 4, Rugrats, WCW Thunder, Warzone, and Roll Cage. That's a lot of games, actually. Resident Evil 2 CD. I wish I had that today. Aftershock Wheel. EA Sports Controller. What was included on the demo disc? So what's coming next month? They're going to review Final Fantasy VIII. Big name games and demos. What's going to be on their demos. And a big ass ad for NASA Motorhead. NASCAR Motorhead. Only Eidos brings in the new year with a bang. All right. That was official PlayStation Magazine, Volume 2, Issue 6, Silent Hill. Great issue. I feel like they reviewed Silent Hill correctly. Even the things they said was a con, they said that it's something they appreciated, but that people who play the game might not like, which is true. So this was a good issue. They nailed it here. Good job, PlayStation Magazine. Everyone, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Obviously, subscribe and help the channel. It's going to help me want to buy more of these, review more of these, and look at them. I'm in a weird situation right now where I'm actually moving to another city in a couple weeks. So there's going to be not a lag in content, but a weird, where I'm not going to specifically have PlayStation magazines maybe. And I might have to go back to comic books reviews again and stuff like that. There will be more of these, but I can't specifically order this and get it shipped to me when I'm moving to another city. That would be, and I don't even know where I'm going to live in the other city. So there's going to be a little lag in these specifically, but thanks everyone for watching. And again, please like, share, subscribe, all the things. I'll see you next time.